sitting here and watching the countdown. I thought I probably ought to get the blower warmed up, make sure everything's going. And I hit the switch and it didn't go. It was not chooching. So I was struggling, running around trying to figure out what in the world's going on. I realized that we were using it yesterday and one of the hoses didn't get plugged in. Well, I tried to plug it in and then I realized it was frozen. So I just got it going. So we're all good right now. But goodness, what a beautiful day. It is super, super cold. 18 degrees this morning. And what is today? Wednesday? I think tomorrow, starting about 6 o'clock in the morning, we're expecting the next big storm. Let me get you flipped around here with our high production. There we go. So I'm a little anxious. I'd like to get this the new shop blown out. We'll head over here and we will see if we can't get that opened up. I'd like to get we got to extricate the old Yanmar out of that snowbank, and I would like to get the plow, and I don't know if I would put the chains on yet, but I need to kind of get them laid out, so if need be we can do it. I hate to have to get all this stuff ready when you're in the midst of a storm. Yeah, it looks, Captain Davey says, are we plowing snow or are we just making steam? It sure looks like that, doesn't it? Boy, it is beautiful today, gentlemen. Absolutely beautiful. Still in the teens. But it is crisp and cold, but this is the eye before the storm, I guess, or the eye of the storm, in between two storms. Looking at 3 days of snow starting tomorrow morning about 5 a.m. So we might be up doing an early morning around the neighborhood stream. Wouldn't surprise me. Greetings from Serbia. I wonder does it snow in Serbia? Well, I don't know my geography all that well. Hello from Denmark. Woodburn, Oregon. I used to work in Woodburn. I had a high school or after high school job there. Used to ride my motorcycle down 99 south to go to work. Yeah, comments on electrical prices or the cost of energy going up. Mrs. W and I have been talking a lot about that of late. You know, this we're trying to make plans and, you know, downsize into a smaller home. You know, what we want that to look like, and, you know, the more we consider the importance of energy independence, the smaller the house gets, because it's, you know, just to take care of and maintain a big house is a lot of effort. And if you can get something that's more efficient and smaller. Oh, isn't that pretty? Goodness. I wish you guys could see how beautiful this is. Oh, the snow bike footage, it wasn't that great. I've got a GoPro camera. It's not the newest one, but the previous model. And it has, from the beginning, been nothing but a plague upon me of malfunctions and problems and it's horrible. Absolutely horrible. So much so that I almost swore off of it. I took it with me one last time, and I just turned it on for Jack and I. All that was just our ride back, back on the road from a day of riding. So I'm surprised it worked. But that was just a little taste of what it's like. It's an incredible thing to do. Those machines are so incredible that in just 15 minutes, 20 minutes of riding up the mountain, you can be at 8,000 feet at any time in the comfort of a warm suit and a Bluetooth connected helmet with your music and whatever. I mean, it's just surreal. You feel, the gear and everything is so good. You're up there and you're listening to your playlist, and you don't realize that you're 40 miles deep into a wilderness where if anything happened to you, you would never be able to survive the night, but here you are out there comfortable, and Lord willing, you'll be sleeping in your bed that night. And be able to be out there and to see those things, sometimes I think the effort that would be involved for a man to try to get out there on foot or with snowshoes or skis, whatever, it would be tremendous. And very few people get to see that. Well, my preferred airsoft chest holster, or chest rig, I have two. One that both are from Spiritus. Oh, I missed a little spot right there. One's from Spiritus, or both are. I have the overt and the covert, and the covert is the absolute minimalist rig that you can get by and still carry level 3 plus or 4 plates, ceramics. Reason for that, what's nice about that is that the likelihood of you're more likely going to need or want to wear your body armor concealed, covertly, as they say, and so that gives you the ability. You can put that on, and it's so trim. You can wear it underneath of a large jacket, or even you can oversize a Pendleton shirt and almost get away with it. The best thing is a vest, like a down vest. Those really help to hide the hard edges of the plates. But it's not limited to that. It's very flexible. That's why it's such a good system. Then if you want to, you can just insert the Fastex buckles and then add a full placard of whatever magazines you want, or you could do a microfight like I have. I have both. It's very versatile. You could even go up between 7.62 and 5.56 with different placards. Super handy. So that's a good way to go. The other one I have is the overt, meaning outward, which is their main battle plate, but it's pretty lightweight. It's not super HD like a Mayflower or anything like that, but it's it's also really trim, very capable. But I would check them out. They're very, very good. If I was going to, if I had to start over right now and I had to get something else, I'd probably I'd probably buy the same thing. I mean, I haven't went out there and looked for a while, but from what I know now, I'd buy the same thing. Oh, we have a super chat. How did I miss that? From Mr. Josh Connor. Can you rent snow bikes like yours for a weekend? Shout out to you, Josh. Yes, you sure can. I haven't done it. There might even be someone locally here. I'll have to check into that. I'll ask around a little bit. But I don't. If you go online, there's a lot of companies out west, Idaho, BC. The good areas to ride. Washington State, Oregon, maybe even. that have you just show up. So you just show up and you bring your winter clothes. So if you have like some snowboard boots and your ski clothes and a couple pair of goggles, whatever you have, you bring it. They'll fill in the rest. They'll give you the Avi bags and all that. You don't have to do anything. And that might be a good way to go if you're not sure if you're going to like it and you don't know if you want to invest in that right away. That would be a good way to go to see if you like it. Make sure you have a good experience, because I can tell you, I just jumped in and had mine built before I didn't even ride one. Mine was the first one I ever rode, but I know enough about moto and snow sports, growing up around them, and that I knew I would like it. I just knew it, and I knew people that I've moto with that had done it for years, and I know I know those guys really well, and they were telling me like there was just no question about it. So I jumped in and did it, but it was very intimidating. I didn't have two at the time, so I wanted to go up, but I didn't really know anyone. And so I was reluctant to go up. I wanted to go up there, but I just wouldn't do it. I didn't know how to ride the thing, and I'd ridden it around the field here, and it felt okay, but I thought, man, I don't know if I want to get up there in the woods and by myself and get in trouble out there without someone to be able to call and help me. So I didn't go, and so I put out an ad. It was so weird. I put out an ad in Craigslist, I think it was, looking for people that snowbiked in my area. And this guy, Robin, responded, who is a local guy. He's not too far, hour away on Mount Hood, the other mountain. And he, invited me to join in with their group. And they ride up here on Fuji as well. And so I went riding with them. So it was a really perfect opportunity, because I got to learn how to ride the bike in the comfort or the embrace of the arms of friends, or new friends that were really safety conscious and had a really good understanding, a lot of experience in the backcountry. Like they organize a ride every 2 weeks, and so like last year and the year before, Jack and I, we snowbike a lot, do a lot of big trips. I don't video a lot of them, but we'll take the trailer and head out, and we have the Chase the Snow group. So these guys drew a circle, like 250-mile radius, and wherever the storm is, that's where we go. So the email goes, or the text goes out, hey, this is where it's going to be. Here are the numbers to the local places to stay. So Jack and I will load up our stuff and just head over there. And it's usually not too far away because the radius isn't so large. But it's really nice. And on some of the more dangerous areas, like when we went deep into the backcountry of the Sawtooth in Idaho, where that's big, hairy country out there, and showing up from out of town and not knowing the area, you can die out there easily. The group, because so many of the guys that are in our Chase the Snow group are in the industry, in the snowmobile industry stuff, they knew people, and so we had two local guides, that we did avalanche checks, and that took us up to all the good stuff. It was really awesome, really a cool deal. So I would say that unless you really know yourself and you're really an intrepid soul, a professional homeowner type that can be a self-starter and go out there and fight through all of that and get it, but if you want to find out before you invest it, then I'd probably book a trip. Yeah, you would enjoy it. But thank you for that. Okay, we have a super chat from Ingrained Outdoors. Shout out to you, Ingrained, who writes, did the next owners of the old off-grid property build? Yeah, I think so. We haven't been up there. It was too depressing. Mrs. W asked me if I wanted to go up there. Maybe a year ago or so. I said, no, that's still too much pain. I left too much money up there on the table. Too much hard work, and it's just too painful to go back. So I haven't seen it, but I heard that they had built something, a big house, I think. But shout out to you, and thank you very much. Goodness, we have a super chat from Myers Forged. Shout out to you, and single Loctite member. He writes, as a blacksmith and bladesmith trying to grow my channel, what are some of the tips to help my growth? You just gotta be, I think what it is, I've always said I don't believe that the content doesn't matter. It really doesn't. To an extent. Now there's some content that I just am not gonna get down with. I don't get anime, and I don't care how charismatic the person is, if the channel is based around that, there's just nothing that anyone can do to lure me into this. That's just my personal preference. We like different things. But you have to stay within reason of what your audience is. If you want to target men, you don't want to do a female-dominated topic. So with that understood, you've got knife and blacksmith. You're already there with that. The most important thing is you have to do what you're really excited about, what you're really passionate about. I was thinking in yesterday's video, I got up and I was really excited to put that Mako handlebar setup on my 300. And that's not something, I work on my bikes all the time, but I rarely shoot videos on it. It's something I'll usually do in the evening or after work on the weekends. And so I wanted to do this, and I was kind of excited to look at the box and how it fit and worked. But I knew I got to put content up, and the live stream didn't work out. And I think that was on YouTube's end and all that. And I was struggling back and forth, I have to do something for the channel. Wait a minute. The most important thing about this channel, and always has been, is that I have shared with you what I was excited about or interested in at the time, in real time. Mrs. W has been at me for years. Why don't you make content? Why don't you get ahead? Why don't you get 2 weeks ahead and just keep posting, so you could have a little bit of breathing room from time to time, so you don't have to constantly feed that daily beast. And I told her, no, I can't do that. If I shoot something and sit on it for 24, 48 hours, I've almost lost interest in it. And rarely do I even make anything of it or upload it. I'll just dump it. What I share with you guys and what you see is usually the same day. When I upload a video, it's almost always the very same day of what happened. It seems fresh, and I like that way. I like it. I like interacting and sharing stuff with you that way, because that's what's in my heart and on my mind, and that's what I'm interested in right now. And that makes dragging the camera around and setting up the lighting and the audio and all the burdens that come from that, it makes it a joy rather than a job. Now and that's the most important thing. So you don't pigeonhole yourself and pick a name or start being, I only do this, because you may only do that now, but a decade, I've been doing this for over a decade now. Life goes on and things change, and you get older and your interests change. If you're going to stay in this for a long haul, you need to be able to move with that. And the most important thing then is this, to summarize it, is you need to focus your channel on what it is that gives you the fizz, and make those videos, and your enthusiasm and your sincerity and your joy of what you're doing will come through, and that's contagious. And that's what makes YouTube the most popular place that people come for content, because it's genuine. And that's why small creators who are genuine resonate with people, because when I connect with someone as a YouTube channel, it makes me feel good. Sometimes we can feel really isolated in this world, and to know that there's someone else that shares or can commiserate with our problems or difficulties or struggles in life, it helps us. Misery loves company. Isn't that the old saying? But thank you for that. Shout out to you. Get myself a drink. I don't know if Mrs. W is in the chat. I'm pretty far away from the house, but if she is, maybe one of you guys could ask her if she could be so kind as to put some coffee on, maybe a snack. Okay, let us proceed. It's getting mighty chilly in here. Oh goodness, shut it down. We have a super chat. We have a super chat from Jonathan FP123 who says, greetings from the UK. Check out my next message. I wrote too much. I wrote too much. Shout out to you, Jonathan. Of course, there's your horn honk. Do we have a message incoming here? I'll keep an eye for it. Eye open for it. All right. Let us proceed. Oh, I see what you. Okay, I got Jonathan. I got what he's doing here. Greetings from the UK. If you are considering downsizing, have you considered building a passive house elsewhere on your current property? They are designed and built in such a way that they require. Yeah, that's. I'll tell you, Jonathan. I would consider that. That would depend on the location. If I had something that was where I was building on the side of the hill where I could build in like a hobbit house, I would do that. I would take advantage of that thermal mass and do something traditional like that. But to be, at this time right now, I just don't want to reinvent the wheel. I don't have time, nor do I have the interest. I don't have the interest, to be honest with you. If I had the interest, of course, I would make the time, because that's where your interest is. That's where where your time is spent. That's where your heart is. To research alternative methods like that, I guess I don't have that much time left. And I have other things I want to do. So the quickest, safest, best route for us to go right now to achieve our goals would be to stick with a traditional method of construction, all built in a high-quality method. With very good insulation for a subalpine environment. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. But shout out to you, and thank you for that. Let us proceed. Oh goodness, did I miss another one? Shut it down. We have a super chat. We have a super chat from Thomas Martin, $20. Goodness, thank you, Thomas, who says, what are your thoughts on wildland hand crew retention for a Type 2 1A crew? I'm not sure what you're asking, Thomas. What are your thoughts on a wildland hand crew retention for Type 2A crew? Well, I don't know exactly what you're saying. But shout out to you, Thomas, for that. Very generous of you. Retention. I've heard, now the government is not telling you this. And I mean, if you can read between the lines at some of the congressional hearings, they were very, very concerned about not having enough firefighters for the fire season. Now, I don't know nationwide. I don't pay attention to nationwide too much. I'm more focused in my particular area. But we really didn't have anything of much concern this year. I mean, we smelled a little smoke from over east, but we didn't have to really spool up. So I don't know that it was really pressed or tested whether or not we would be able to provide. If we had two big fires going, like Type 1 crews or fires, or three, within the county, would the resources be there? I just don't know. I have heard that they were having major staffing issues, that people were not coming in because the feds are, of course, still pushing these draconian, virus regulations. Dudes have to firefight, right in their cab of their truck with a mat. The whole, it's just such nonsense. And guys are like, I'm not doing this. The pay is not that great. I have to go and eat smoke for who knows what the long-term damage of that is going to be. But I don't know. Wasn't sure what you were asking me. Maybe you can clarify, and I could be happy to expand on that. But thank you for that, and certainly shout out to you. Let us proceed. I miss a super chat? I think I probably did. You know how it is around here. Oh, sir, I'm so sorry. We have a super chat from Jonathan FP123 who says, in the UK, they are becoming quite popular. Standard design, but extremely well insulated. Well, you know, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, I don't know. I would imagine you're probably very interested in that right now with the energy shortages and the crisis. You guys are an island nation, as you know, with no natural resources to speak of, and so that's why you've always had such a good navy, because you needed to, yeah, you needed to feed, you needed to feed your people. So if you can't get energy, or you can't afford it in the traditional sense, then there is no other choice but to look at these technologies. So for you, if I found myself in that situation, of course, that my whole paradigm would change on what I was looking for a house. I would be absolutely all over the internet about this. So I guess it all just depends on where you're coming from. But yeah, I get that. I get it. So he's expanding on this hand crew, more on what you think would improve retention across the cruise. Just wondering your thoughts on how to retain people aside from money. You know, the only way, I mean, money, of course, but you may not have enough money to do that. If you're talking about as someone that maybe was a private contractor, let's say I was a private contractor, and I'm trying to supply 6 Type 2 crews. You know, that's what, 20 people per crew. So yeah, that's a big job. And usually, you know, who's able and who's fit to do this type of work? It's going to be young people. So Jack's age, basically, or a little bit older. So they don't have the allegiance to causes that we had. They don't have the patriotism. They don't have the wave the flag, and you know, it's just been so beaten to death and trot out for false and wrong events, and to push political agendas that the people are weary of it. Those of us who grew up, you know, that snap to the flag, you know, these younger people, they don't see it that way. So they don't have an allegiance so much to the country or to a cause. You know, everything is very individualistic. And they're very flighty. Their attention span is short. So, you know, they want to jump to here and there and there. So to lock someone down from that age group and into a commitment to a team like that, I don't know that it's possible. I mean, the only way that you could do that is if that I could think of is if that crew had been bonded together in some sort of a desperate struggle. So let's say that the fire jumped over the line and chased, you know, the crew out, and they had to depend on one another, and someone stepped up as the fire as a good leader, and you know, they overcame a common danger to save themselves together by working together. You know, then you have something special. You've bonded, you've forged friendships in fire that are very strong. But outside of that, I don't know what you could do apart from just offering them so much money that it's better than the next option. But even when they get there, you know, the chance of them being prepared and understanding what they're agreeing to and being able to put their hand to the plow of that difficult work is going to be few and far in between. I don't know, man. I mean, it's the way things are going. Maybe we should just let them burn. And I mean, I've always understood when I made the decision to move out here into the urban interface. The urban interface is that area, that buffer between national forests, state forests, private forests, and residential areas. And I've always understood that I have a personal responsibility. I've made the decision to do this, and I've accepted the consequences if they come. And I've always taken measures to do what I can to save what I had. And if someone came to help, or the Forest Service or whatever, I would be grateful for that. But I understand that there's only so many resources and not everyone can be saved. I mean, if we're going to get back, things are drying up and, people not coming to work, you can want and you can wish for things to be the way that they were, but it just might not happen. And if you don't have people on the ground and no one's showing up, then what is your option other than just let it burn? And, everyone's on their own. However, if that's where we're going, then there cannot be any expectations of those of us who are taking care of ourselves to be paying taxes. I wouldn't think so. It would be unreasonable to ask a man to pay taxes for services that are no longer needed or being provided. I mean, welcome to the future, gentlemen. This is where we're going. Goodness, we have a super chat. Did you get your honks? Hold on, I'm backing up. We're not going anywhere there. Oh, back it up. Shout out to you, Jonathan. Thank you very much. We have a super chat from Mr. Pacific Northwest _Hex, who writes, "Good morning, Cody. Can you recommend a good brand of recovery rope and soft shackles? I need a gift for my son at Christmas." The best, I'm not going to say, I don't know that it's the best, but it is the best value that I've seen. I hope they're still available. Look up the company, I think it's called Rhino, Rhino, like the rhinoceros. Their stuff is not going to be American made. I'll give you I'll give you a proper option. I'll give you an affordable option that will be sufficient. Then I'll give you a tier 1 top of the line option. Look at Rhino. They sell on Amazon. And they have got some of those ropes, their version of it. They've got the soft shackles in a nice package. They've got the hard shackles. I've got several of their products, and I've been very happy with them. I have one of their hard shackles. I've got one of their fold-out shovels. I've got several things from them, and I've been very pleased. Oh, I know, I've got a trailer ball or a trailer insert with the shackle on it for pulling. I've been very pleased with their products, and the pricing is excellent. And they have combos where you can get a kind of a nice little bag and you get your whole retrieval kit, which is kind of cool. So I would recommend that if you're on a budget. If you want to get the best, tier 1 type of stuff, and I don't know all the brands, but I know, go look at ARB. ARB, they're Australian. It's not made in the US, but their stuff is top of the line, professional, homeowner grade, and approved. Go look at ARB, they're good. And I know that their Bubba ropes, I've had mine, I've used it a ton, and I've not had any problems except for there's some small cord that they use at the end to kind of lash the braid together. It's more of a cosmetic thing, and that came loose, but that was just because a knot came loose, and I think I just tied it back and it was fine. So I've not had a problems with it. I bought one in kind of the mid-size, and I would maybe, if you just go to the size you think you need, and then upsize one, and then you'll be happy. Yeah. All right, let us proceed. Thank you, gentlemen, and shout out to you. Overton Windex in the house. Thank you for your moderating. Yankum, yeah, I've heard good things about Yankum as well. The Yankum is the name that comes up from you guys most of the time. Everyone likes the Yankum rope. I've got the Bubba rope, and that's been working good for me. Good morning, Mr. Ben, Mr. LePage, our resident Aussie. I hope you enjoyed your Vegemite breakfast. Well, Paul, Flattery will get you everywhere, but we all know that I am not an educated man. Oh goodness, shut it down. Not only if you super chat, whoops, I get ahead of myself. Not only will you have my full attention, but I will give you Jonathan FP123 again. Thank you so much. Says, why do U.S. trailers have a foot instead of a jockey wheel? The wheel makes it very easy to shunt by hand or adjust if you're not dead in line with the hitch. Brother, I am an admitted Anglophile and lover of all things English, apart from beans with breakfast. But I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what that term is. I don't know what a jockey wheel is. Why do U.S. trailers have a foot instead of a jockey wheel? Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, okay. Oh, well, we have both. But you see, you guys, you British, everything is very small in Britain. Everything in America is very big, overbuilt and heavy. And you may put what he's talking about is on the tongue, the jack on the tongue. He's asking, why is it that you have a foot there that goes down and not a caster wheel? A caster wheel is much better because then you can roll the thing around, move it around. Yes, that's fine. I have a trailer that carries 3 motorcycles. It has a caster wheel on it. It's a small little trailer, very handy. Like if you pull in that trailer and you go down a road and there's no place to turn around and you've got this stupid trailer on, you can unhook it, flip it around, turn your truck around, and then off you go. Very handy. Or if you're trying to store it in your garage or a storage area, yeah, it's the best. But when you get American-sized, non-UK type of equipment, you're not pushing that thing anywhere. There's just too much mass and steel on those things, I guess. They're just not strong enough. If you have to put that much tongue weight on the caster wheel, it would have to be something like off of an SR-71 Blackbird or some aviation thing, because you get some Texan, he's going to go buy the biggest, baddest dual axle dump trailer he can get because he wants to be able to put the payload, and he's a Mopar man, so he's going to have that new Cummins and it's chipped and blowing smoke and he's coal rolling and he is ready to go to work, right? So he's not going to be content with what he can just get in that trailer. He's going to pat it down. So he'll get something real heavy like some hard pan clay or something and then spray a bunch of water on it and get it good and heavy and then pack it in, put it in there and then pack it down and then heap it some more and then pack it until the axles are bending, and you want to put a caster wheel on that. I mean, that's the way we work out here. But shout out to you from the UK and thank you for that. Or I guess that was from the previous one. You got all, goodness. You know what I'm saying. Goodness, we have a super chat from Mr. Josh Connor and double alternator member. Shout out to you, who says, just wanted to say thank you again for the Good Samaritan story the other day. Have been thinking about it since then. Well, Josh, of course, shout out to you. Thank you very much as well. Hits home, right? It hits home. The delightful thing about that, I used to be really concerned about my standing with God and especially, it was really bad when I left when you was brainwashed into Christianity, and you, in that kind of that Christian cult that I grew up with, to the point where they taught an angry, vengeful God, and they used that to control everyone, and so it was a system of shaming, and so you controlled people by limiting access. So if you got in trouble, I mean, it was horrible. There were some instances where and this all happened to me as well. The first time I saw it that was really bad was I had a good friend. His name was Jared, and he was a good dude, man. He was the class clown, and I just loved him. He just had a magnanimous personality, and he was the big guy. He was always a little overweight, And some, how he's the Chris Farley type of character, but everyone just loved him. We just thought the world of him. He was just such a good guy. And he got in trouble in the church for doing something silly. I don't know if he drink. I think it was drinking or I don't know, talking to some girl. We weren't allowed to have friends outside the church or talk to anyone outside the church. You had to marry inside the church, and it was huge. There was thousands of people, and he got in trouble for something. And the leadership at that time thought the best solution for that was to have him come up and up on the pulpit and publicly apologize, and then sit up there after he apologized, sit up there while the entire sermon was directed at him and his particular sins, shaming him in front of the whole group for an hour and a half. And this went on for a month. And we met twice a week. He'd have to go up there and he'd sit up there with his head down the whole time, just in shame. And, the church was set up in a way that it was huge. There was the entire congregation was in the building and a traditional pulpit up front. And on the left side on the front were the boys or the bachelors, the older to the outside and the younger towards the middle, and the same with on the front with the females, the spinsters on towards the front on the side, and then the maidens on the front. And so the whole church is looking on. So you sat there in the front with everyone behind you, and if you'd done anything wrong, your head, your ears are burning the entire episode. So we're sitting up there and watching this, and in sermon after sermon, and day after day, he said about this and his particular sins. And I'm just, and I didn't see it at the time. I can see it now. But how much can a kid deal with? And he recently had, lost his father. His father died tragically coming home from work in a car accident. Long story short, because of that event, he basically his fate had been sealed. Was he ever going to have access to any of these girls, or any of these fathers going to allow him to find a mate to marry? Of course not, right? So what was he to do? So he was just to live out the rest of his life as a bachelor, with the rest of these poor sods, sitting over there. What happened, ultimately it drove him out. He left before I did. And I heard, a year or so later, maybe a year and a half later, he'd, deleted himself with a shotgun right to the head. At that time, I had lost contact with him. At that time, I was so in the system and involved in it that, to try to reach out to someone outside of that, would have came at great personal risk. If someone would have seen you or it gotten out that you were meeting with this person that had been ostracized, it would have been big trouble for you. So of course, we just, I regret that now, but I just didn't have the courage. I was just a boy. I didn't have the courage to stand up against that. It was just too strong. And that's just what I lived in. That was my reality. I didn't know anything else. Just didn't know anything outside of that. But that really was I think that really started it, the whole thing coming down for me, and for me starting to pull away from that and lose respect for that system and start to see that something was wrong. It was tragic. So to be able to, to circle back, I guess, to what we're talking about, to the story of the prodigal son. I come out of that, what I ultimately was left and ostracized from, cut off from everything. And, I just had figured that I knew that God was real. There was never any question about that. But I had figured that since I had left it, because they tell you, this is the remnant. This is the only real church, And if you're outside of this, then you're in the world and you're lost. It's hopeless for you. So I figured, well, I might as well, if I'm lost, we might as well take advantage of that, right? So, with no oversight, living on my own, which I did. So I can speak to addiction. I can speak to homelessness. I can speak to not knowing where you're going to sleep. I can speak to violence and drug addiction. I can speak to all these things. Well, I've lived it. And by God's grace, I'm sitting here talking to you guys today. I can't be proud and look down my nose at the dude with the sign at the overpass. Do I always give him money? But no, but I struggle with it, and it's a reminder to me, there go I, except for the grace of God. If it hadn't been for his interventions and not picking me up when I'd fallen down and carried me along in those hard times, I could have easily ended up there. Might not even be here talking to you today. It's highly likely. It was just a decision or two, a chance encounter. It was that close. Could have went either way with that. So to be able to come through that fire and be given another chance, given an opportunity that I had to God to bring a woman like Mrs. W into my life. And I'm not one of those dudes that am completed by a woman. We're not talking about that, but the connection where we need to focus and where the time needs to be spent is, the ideal is with our Savior, the standard, right? But that's not to say that with a woman can't be a tremendous blessing. Look at the patriarchs, look at our fathers, look at the Psalms, how the praises that were sent, and how valuable is a woman. What do the fathers tell us? She's more precious than rubies. That's a big statement. If you took a bag of rubies that were the highest quality, a king's ransom, so to speak, something that would set you up for life. And here the patriarchs who understood the value of a bag of rubies, telling you right here that a good woman is more valuable than this. A good woman is more valuable than a king's ransom. Like enough money, let's say a billionaire. A good woman is more important than that. So to be able to come through, that being raised that way and have one more chance and respond to it, when you hear the story of the prodigal and how God allowed that, that is me. That is very personal to me, and that's one of the greatest blessings. Go back and you start thinking you're high and mighty and figured out. Low, as C.S. Lewis used to say, and you go back to that, and that's a pretty stark reminder. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, gentlemen. Let me back up here just a minute. Oh. My eyes all sweaty here. Can't see. What do you think about covering Home Depot shed to the first time? Oh, from Sue. Hold on, I got someone here. Oh, we got goodness. Thank you, Josh, and shout out to you. I'm going to start this up with my heater back on. I'm getting cold in here. Okay, we have our next super chat here is from Logan Lefevre. Logan, shout out to you. Thank you very much. He says, what happened to the tent and the platform for it? Well, I'm ashamed to say the platform sits over yonder there, and we'll address that here in the spring. The tent got destroyed. It got collapsed. I was out there twice a day shoveling the tent off, thinking I should have taken this tent down. Like, all right, it doesn't snow every day. I'll just keep it shoveled off. It'll be fine. Well, we had a record snow one night, and we came back and it collapsed and folded it in. Well, we crawled in there to check it out, to do a little survey of the damage. Let's get some heat going here. Oh, I just knock out. And it torn in a couple places, but I thought, okay, I can sew that. I can fix it. So we had to get to it. The snow was 4 feet deep. So I got the snowblower in there, and I was working around with the snowblower to liberate it so we could get it out and get it put away. And I caught the cord and gobbled up a big chunk of it in the snowblower, and then it had torn again from more. Anyway, it's gone now. But the platform still exists. Thank you for that super chat, and shout out to you. Oh goodness, I'm missing everyone here. I'm going to back it up. Bradley We have a super chat from Bradley, and Bradley says, "What do you think about converting a Home Depot shed to the first-time house?" I think it's a great idea, Bradley. And shout out to you, Mrs. W. And I. Of course, we're always looking at houses. It's all kind of we're in that process right now, and we actually had some friends who that's what they're doing. They've got some rentals and they buy those things and they convert them into little houses. They even bought one that was existing, they had renters in, and they bought another one and they turned it 90 degrees and they mated them together, and then they hired a carpenter to connect the roof, and now they added like 800 square feet to the rental house. So I think it's a great idea, man. I mean, in these difficult times and these trying times, if you could take your resources and get yourself at a good piece of land in the spot that you want, and not have to take on a massive mortgage, which you might not even be able to get if you're doing an off-grid place, man, your problem's solved. They've even got some big ones. I looked at some videos on some 2-stories or downstairs in a loft. It would be super awesome. Just check your snow loads if you're going to live up in the snow area, you know what they're rated for. But I think it's a great idea. But thank you, Bradley, and shout out to you again. We have a super chat from our beloved Beth. Shout out to you, Beth. It's great to see you. Beth writes, "This is book smart. There's book smart and life smart. Life smart will usually save your life." That's true. That's absolutely true. I was never in the Navy, but I have always been interested in military history and stuff, and how the command structures work and all that. And I've been told, take this for what it's worth, I've been told that the chiefs run the Navy, like on a ship. And a chief, how I understand it, is more of an enlisted man or a non-commissioned officer. I don't know how all that works, but the story goes that if you get a young man that goes through officer training school and shows up and wants to push his weight around because of his new rank, chiefs have ways of making his life so miserable that he will learn to toe the line and understand to give them respect. These are men and women that have been in the service for a long time and know what they're talking about and actually run the whole thing. And if a man would be smart, he would be listening to his betters, even though he may outrank them. So, yeah, thank you for that. And shout out to you. We have another, I think I missed someone. Goodness. Or Beth. Thank you, Beth, very much. That's a kind thing to say. We have a super chat from Jacob Farms, who writes, "I have a small farm in Scotland and I've just opened a local grocery. I plan to quit." Oh man, good for you. "I plan to quit my job in the new year and farm full time. Any entrepreneurial ideas?" Man, your culture is so different from mine that I wouldn't even know where to begin. The entrepreneurial idea that I would give you would be to make whatever it is you're selling. Now, what are you farming? Okay, whatever it is that you're selling, you need to provide people an experience. And I'm not coming from a perspective of saying you need to deceive anyone in any way. Let me give you an example. So Mrs. W has a twin brother who he and his family, his wife and his children, they live in the Netherlands. They've lived in Europe for years. He has a job that kind of requires that. And we were over there visiting in Amsterdam, and I think it was a Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and they had a 2-story home and a beautiful place and just brick. It's gorgeous over there, pristine, absolutely a gorgeous, beautiful. Having a nice morning, having coffee, and I looked downstairs in the street, in this beautiful little quaint brown, it looked like a little funny little French truck pulled up on the side there, and a man got out and he raised up a door, kind of an awning type of thing, and opened up his bakery or his wares. He was a baker. And in that were the most beautiful loaves of bread, semolina and old rustics and hard brown, dark brown breads, gorgeous, gorgeous breads. And he was immaculate with a proper baker's apron on, everything, and everything was beautiful, beautiful. And I watched as the people filed out of all of these apartments and walked down the sidewalk and stood in line, and this man greeted them one by one. And they made their choices and they got their bread and went back up there. It was so delightful. The whole thing was a great experience, and it was very rare because it only happened once a week. So it was an event. It was special. And we're talking about that today. How many places in the Netherlands could I have gotten a loaf of bread in the 2 weeks I was there? You see, that's the point. It was an event. It was something special. Was the bread the best bread I ever had? I don't remember. I remember it was delightful. It was probably delicious. It didn't matter because the event and everything about it made it one of the most special loaves of bread that I've ever bought. It was that experience. So I think that you need to provide that. So everything is so plastic and cookie cutter and everything the same, and you walk out to your car that's the same color as all the other cars, and you see people wearing the same things. People are tired of that, that cookie cutter corporate things. People want something that's unique and genuine, and they're willing to pay for that. I would take advantage of whatever your assets are. Do you live in the country that is famous for a particular type of wool or a particular type of potato? I don't know. Take advantage of that, and find out what was it? What was the original? Can I start growing that again? Can I find those original seeds? Can I exploit, or can I monetize that in a way where people are getting a high quality original, the best they can get product, but also understanding, and having the good feeling of knowing that it's coming from here and that it's supporting a particular family. I would put my family out there as well. I would want people to know that when you're buying this product, I want you to know that this is supporting a family. This is paying for my children so they can eat, and people, I think that's nice. So that's what I would do. I mean, I don't know Scotland. I've never been there before, but as far as Americans go, and I mean, I have a very romantic notion about it. Of course, Highlanders and kilts and the crazy accent and warm, generous people and tweed and peat moss and bog, and goodness, Scotch whiskey was that was my vice. That was my weakness. I could put down a fifth of Scotch whiskey, single malt Scotch whiskey, on a Christmas day by myself, no problem. But not anymore. I have become a teetotaler. So shout out to you. All right, gentlemen, let us proceed. Did I miss anyone? Let me scroll back one more time, and then we'll get going here. If anyone sees Mrs. W, oh goodness, we gotta go way back. I'm almost there. Here we go. Nothing but the best production. Did I pass it? Oh goodness. This live streaming, gentlemen, is the hardest job in the world. Oh, South Carolina. I'm Jacob Farms. Did I get you, Jacob? Jacob, shout out to you. Did I read this twice? I'm South Carolina and have opened. Oh, I don't know why. What am I talking about? Scotland. How long did I go on about Scotland? I hope. Well, shout out to you, Scotland. South Carolina. Well, I could speak to that. You see, I get nervous. I got all this. I'm trying not to run over stuff and the live stream, and I'm trying to read the chat. Oh, my goodness. I am so sorry. Well, the advice is exactly the same. What do I think of when I think of South Carolina? South Carolina, I'm sorry to say, I'm going to have to give you the brutal, honest truth. I think of not North Carolina. I don't know why. I've always thought that North Carolina, I know why. Because I don't like the South. Not that I don't like the South. I don't like anything South. In my mind, this makes no sense. This is just completely one of my weird idiosyncrasies. But in my mind, progress is north. North is on up of the map. I never like going south. I detest it. When I go south, even if I'm driving south in my car for an appointment or something, I feel like I'm regressing in some way. I'm going backwards. Our Lord is the King of the North. That's, that's one of his many names. And so North, the North Star, like, is that where the kingdom is? I don't know. These are all incredible mysteries that I can't get into now. I don't understand them anyway. But North for me is progress. So when I go on a moto expedition, a big solo ride, I've got the whole day set aside. I'm not going south. I'm going north. That's where the adventure is. So when I hear North Carolina, that's what I want to be. I don't want no South Carolina. It doesn't make sense, but that's the way that it is. Shout out to you. Oh, sausage fingers. Oh, let us proceed. Sorry. All right. Full throttle. Engage the Kraken. Oh, goodness. Here we go. We haven't gotten away from that view here. We have a super chat from Mr. James Murphy. Opinion on Ford versus Toyota trucks. Oh, goodness. Well, if there's not... Thank you, James, and shout out to you. If there's anything that I have, that's an opinion. I like them both. Those are two different tools. Toyota, if you want a smaller truck, Toyota owns it. There's no competition. What are you going to get, a Ford Ranger? Ford Rangers have always been trash. Why would we expect them to be any different? They're not trash. They're a low budget entry truck. If they're so good, tell me this. Why does the manufacturer of the world's best selling vehicle in America for the last, 50 years, 40, 60 years, a long time, the F-150, why is it not doing the same thing with the little trucks? And why was it out of production for so long? It has been trash forever. It has always been trash. It's almost maybe worse than the Bronco 2 for the small trucks. And now it's back again. So for the small trucks, the Toyotas for sure. If you're going to get into the bigger trucks, you need a full size. Then you need to get... I would say... now, there's some overlap right there. The F-150 versus the Tundra, that's where we're at right now. We already know the Tacoma is going to destroy the Ranger. And I'm myopic about it. I don't care. It's probably Super Skookum. I bet the one is Super Skookum. It's probably just the same platform as the Bronco. So I'm talking in complete ignorance, but this is my opinion. Small truck, SR5, Toyota, the best. Mid-size, the 150 is the best, of course, excellent. But the full-size, the Tundra, is super good as well. I would come down to engine. I would say I'd drive them, and which one has the engine that gives you the fizz. That's what I would come down to. Get the one that the engine really lights up and is fast and fun to drive. On the big ones, of course, you're going to go with the Super Duty. Yeah, that's what I would say. But James, shout out to you. Thank you. All right. Proceed. I don't think I need to blow that over here. We don't need to do all of it. Let's do another pass here. Boy, the light is super flat. I can't see any detail. It makes your brain go, it's so difficult. It's such a strange experience if you've never experienced that snow. Oh goodness, that snow blindness. That fresh grated gravel on here, so I don't want to chew it up, so I'm going to be a little bit conservative here. See, to always go too deep. Just be careful of that 4Runner. That 4Runner has got a pig of an engine. my opinion on the Amish culture. You know, I have some. I have some firsthand knowledge. I was working, I think it was over in Maryland, and I had a job as a construction superintendent, and so I had the weekends off. I had a company car. It was really awesome. So I took advantage of it. I hadn't traveled very much. It was my first time really out of Oregon on the East Coast. So I really took advantage of it. So I'd take my car and drive all over. So I got to see I went to see Gettysburg and all the I was really into the Civil War. I like that history a lot. I saw all those things. So one weekend, I took my car up there to Intercourse, and I remember the first time I saw an Amish person, it tripped. I couldn't believe it. I was expecting buggies and all that, but I was coming in to Intercourse, and there was a buggy on the side of the road going along, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like pulled up behind him, like, oh, it's real? I couldn't believe it. And so then I went into town, and they were all over the place. And I saw there was a buggy at a gas station. That was a dude in the back was filling up cans in the back. And then, you know, I of course, you know, there's some Amish that are on the fringes, the margins that, you know, monetize, and, you know, I don't know how Amish they are, but then you see houses that don't have power on in them, and then I saw a guy plowing with 8 horses, 8 or 10, a whole bunch of them, great big draft horses, and then right next to him was an Amish dude with a skid steer. So they all had varying levels of you know, what was appropriate, was not appropriate. And then I saw in one house, I saw a sewing machine that had been converted over to pneumatic, and every appliance in the house had been converted over to pneumatic. And I found out from that family that in their belief, it was okay to have these automated machines provided they weren't electrical, you know, like the English. Very interesting, very fascinating. So yeah, it was. I also saw there was a lawn party. I think it was on Sunday, where it was like a potluck, and it wasn't a barn raising. Of course, that would be cool to see. You know, I'm sure those don't happen that often, but there were a bunch of folk. But it was very much like the way that I grew up. I grew up in that same community, just like the Amish, exactly, without the bonnets and the dresses and the clothing and those in that particular costume. So we were very much the same way. But but there were very strange differences. No one drank. It was definitely frowned upon. We definitely did not drink it. We hid that. You know, we drank when we were teenagers, but we definitely didn't tell anyone. So that was definitely forbidden. But most people smoked. There was even the back of the church where the men would meet before the meetings. They actually called it the smoker. And there was no ventilation or anything. You would go back there, it was blue, and there'd be a couple hundred dudes back there smoking, and some guys smoking outside. I mean, it was incredible, you know. So it was strange how different things that they had. Very weird. I don't know what we were talking about. Shout out to me for escaping that relatively unharmed. Let us proceed. Oh, stay out of the gravel, goodness. Yeah, we had that same thing, guys. So there would be a young family. When a young man got married, I don't want to. I'm sharing with you. I can't be honest if I didn't share the good side of it as well, which is probably 50-50. You know, maybe even. I'm getting, you know how men are. We get old and nostalgic. See, what women may not understand is that men are easy to get along with. You know, we don't typically have the ability to hold grudges. Perfect story. C.S. Lewis, he talks about this, the difference between men and women. And he gives a perfect example. And he says, which would you prefer to meet? Let's say that your dog, you let it out to use the bathroom, and it ran across the road, ran into the yard, and bit the neighbor's child, little 8-year-old girl out there playing in her sandbox. The little dog ran over there and nipped her and bit her. Ran back. Comes back, right? You as the man of the house, who would you rather face, the mistress or the master of the home? Well, I think we know exactly who we would rather face. Now, I'm not saying this to be negative about women. A woman needs to be extremely patriotic when it comes to protecting her family. If we look at the way things are in the past, a woman is vulnerable in many ways that a man is not. And she needs to imply everything at her ability to protect her and her ability to reproduce and protect her children and offspring. And oftentimes in the past, what has been required is a tremendous overreaction. Smaller animals, and I'm not comparing them to animals. Don't read what I'm saying wrong. And I'll quit apologizing here. But smaller animals, if they don't have the ability to protect themselves from larger prey, many of them have these tricks where they can make themselves look bigger. They can throw up hands or paws, or throw up feathers to make themselves look bigger and fierce, or the puffer fish, or blow itself up to dissuade an enemy. And a woman protecting her children, we know the analogy of the mother bear. There's nothing more dangerous, and there's nothing more I fear in the back country than a sow and a cub. Very unpredictable, very, very dangerous. So, what were we talking about? People are different. Women and men are different. And I guess forgiveness and not holding grudges. Getting back to the church, of course, the older I get and the more that the world falls apart around us, where we find comfort, or where many of us try to find some comfort or some sanity in this world, is going back to something that's familiar, going back to those comfort foods, and going back to the things that we knew, just because there was at least some sanity there. And when we take that passion and that desire, I guess, that we have to get back to some normalcy, and we mix that in with the holidays, which make most of us very sentimental anyway, then you can get kind of sad and melancholy about. Yeah, I have found just in this last week or so with the holidays, Christmas coming, I have a profound soberness. I wouldn't say a sadness. Depression is always a fine line that we're always fighting off. How can you not suffer some sort of depression when you're separated from your beloved, from your creator? So to not be depressed about that, so there's something wrong with you. So that's always present. So I'm not worried about that so much. But just a profound soberness of it all. And that maybe it's time. Maybe that it's all. When God needs to bring in a major event, and I'm going to spitball here. Could speculate on what is he trying to do, and what is the future for us, his soldiers, his commanders in the army of God, for the future, the battles, the spiritual battles. I'm not advocating violence, of course. How could we glean insight into this? How can we figure out what he's talking about? The only thing we have are the 66. We can't rely on memories or grandpa's faith or recollections or what we learned on his knee. We have to have hard facts, So the 66 books, when God needed to move to bring about the events of Jesus, the Messiah, coming, something happened that was kind of interesting, and the Roman leader of the time decided to do a census, or maybe it was an annual thing. And at that time, you couldn't just send in your ballot where you were at. You had to return to your native land. So you may have been a particular family that was from Jordan or where have you, and you had wandered and now had set up a business. Well, the leader said that he's going to do a census, and you have a certain amount of time, and you best be back there. So this caused a tremendous uproar in the East in those days, and families moving. Well, if we back up to our Lord, he's a boy at this time, and his family are hiding. They're political refugees. Joseph and Mary have been down south in Egypt because King Herod had been looking been looking to destroy that child. Well, they got word of it, and they had to come back up and come back to the hometown, there, and headed up and ultimately settled there in Nazareth. We know the story. So God is ultimately in charge and brought about a particular event that caused a chain reactions of a great movement and change of peoples. And also, don't forget that he often uses these events, or triggers these events. Those of us who are men of the book, know from the Old Testament, from leaders that are not of the faith, or not where you would think they would come from. He'll use men and women for his will, to move his church in ways they're not even aware of what they're doing, or we don't know for sure. So is that what's happening? Is this shrinking of this economy, this bread and circus that's been swirling around us for the last decade, consuming us? We're all wrapped up into it. We're speaking to each other here. How many of us have lost the sight of what's real and what matters, and lost the sight of God? And he tells us, I won't be mocked. So I think it's hard. It tempers the black pill, the Christian. It tempers the black pill, knowing that, okay, this is going to be hard. This is going to be a bummer, a difficult time, but at least we're on the road. At least we're moving, right? I know many of you are probably ready, like I am. I'm ready to do something. We've been in fight or flight ever since the whole COVID thing dropped, and ready to do something. And as it just lingers and it dies with a whimper, it's somewhat deflating. It's like, well, I'm not asking for something horrible to happen, but at least I'd like something to happen. So at least so I could move, so I could start living again, and not have to be in this position where I might need to pivot and change immediately. It's hard to have any peace or relax with that. And once you understand that the reason why I'm doing these live streams, and the reason why I'm spending more time with God, more time in prayer, why this is starting to become clear to me that this is important to me, is because of God pulling my attention away from all of the bread and circus, so to speak. So this soberness, this somberness, is not a depression. It's just an awakening to the harsh reality that we've been on vacation for a long time, and the bill's coming due. And now it's time to go back to work. So knowing that we're going to be on the front line of the army of God, that's what we have to look forward to. That's what we're training for. Let us proceed, gentlemen. Maximum. We have full speed. Yeah, I don't think it's a debate at all, to be honest with you. So the great debate is, can we really truly ever know that we're saved? I mean, what type of an existence would that be? To ride that roller coaster? What happens? So I've lived it. I can sympathize. That is one of the most sinister deception and lies from the devil. It's one of the worst things out there. That and the eternal hellfire that tortures people forever and ever have done more damage to the gospel than anything else. You're basically saying that if I'm riding a roller coaster, that my salvation is determined on whether I was good or bad, then I'm just basically going through life playing Russian roulette. What if I die of a heart attack on the day that I'm on the dip? Hopefully I'll die and pass away my sleep when I had just repented before there. But here I ride this roller coaster up and down, forever and ever, always never content, never really knowing, never at peace, anxious all the time. Um, that's what God wants from you. If I thought a deity was pleased with keeping someone in a state of limbo like that, I would spit in his face. I would turn my back on him. I would curse him, and I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't have anything to do with it. What type of a tyrant? What type of a person? Even a father. Let's say a human father. You know, we're told, we know that we're in sin and we're imperfect and we're selfish and we're full of narcissism and independence. Yet, to our very own children, to my little girl, my 5-year-old, the sweet loaf, would I put her in a position of manipulation where she never really knew what her standing was with me? And what if the consequences of this manipulation, if she found herself outside of my will, what if the consequences were death? Or worse yet, eternal punishment in the flames, forever and ever, never to be with no relief? You're going to ask me, as a thinking man, you're going to ask me to serve a God like that. But yet people do. Most people do. And go through life like that. A sadist. So we as sinful men, as fathers, the thought of doing that to my own daughter, it would be unthinkable to put her in a situation where she had to live and endure a life like that. And yet we project that on God, yet we are not that great of a monster to do that, but our God is. Yet we'll bow down and we'll serve him and we'll sit in the pews on Sunday. Gentlemen, it's time to start thinking. You've been given a logical brain, a logical mind. It's time to start thinking and looking at and asking the hard questions. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you going to church at all? Are you doing anything? Is there any power in it? Is it changing? Is it making any changes? Is there any reformation in your life? What God tell us? I'd rather you be hot or cold, but the fact that you're lukewarm, I vomit you out of my mouth. You're an offense to me. Your very existence offends me. I'd rather have dinner with a prostitute than you. You hypocrite. You know, that's not where we want to be. Do it or don't do it. My granddad used to say, sit or get off the pot. It was always a terrible turn of phrase. I never liked it. It's the first time I think I've repeated it. Now I'm ashamed. So, what is he like then? Well, what does he tell us? He tells us, Jesus tells us in the New Testament, if we confess our sins, we're told, if we confess our sins, that he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us of all unrighteousness. That's a quote. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us. How many? How many of our sins? To forgive us all. All. That's not some. So you go to your God in prayer, and you lay with fear and trembling, you lay your sins and burdens down and bitter tears of regret and what you've done in the past and the way you've conducted yourself. You lay that down, and that's laid down. If you're still carrying it around, it's because you picked it back up, but he's long since forgiven that. Because if he hasn't, you're forgiving him. He said, you know what he does with that? When you lay those down, if you read on, he says, I remember it not. I cast it into the sea. It doesn't even exist anymore. So what you picked up and are still carrying around with you is a bag full of rocks that aren't even the very sins that you laid down. It's just a bag you pack around. He's already forgiven it. And if he hasn't, then he's a liar. And what do we know? What happens to the liar at the end times? He tells us, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. I changeth not. So when we read these old stories, gentlemen, it's the same. The church sermonizing men would tell you that the old things are no longer apply. The old ways are no longer relevant. Human nature is different. Things are too different now. We're in the modern age. These old lessons have no value to us. That's not true. Solomon had the same problems. King David. Gideon, the same problems we all suffer with. And the Bible and the Old Testament and the 66 are a testimony. It's an example of us, how God deals with us, how God deals with his children and men in difficult situations. And what it shows us is not an angry, vengeful God that is waiting to squash you. What it shows, incredibly, is a God that's willing to bend the rules, make concessions, bail you out, forgive you over and over and over again. Peter in all of his pride, Master, how many times shall I forgive my brother who sins against me? 7 times? If I were to do that, would that make me a good churchman? Would that make me a good Christian? Christ looks at him and says, no, not 7. 7 times 70, Peter. And that was in one day. Someone reminded me of that the other day. I was asked the question when I think it was maybe the first snow stream. If I ran into that same woman who reviled me last year that I did a video on and publicly shamed, if I saw her again in that same situation, would I help her? And I was very wrapped up in my ego and my pride and looking very forward. It was like just picturing the whole scenario in my mind and how the glee that I would receive from being able to pull by and, how I would enjoy that. And one of you guys rebuked me in the perfect way by not saying anything or telling me that I was a bad, or just by leaving the simple quote that I just quoted to you. How many times shall I forgive my brother who sins against me in one day? I'm in a difficult situation right now. I won't go into personal details and all that, but regarding forgiveness, it touches on forgiveness, and someone that sees things differently than I do, because there is forgiveness that we are required to do this, and someone could do some particular things and harm you in a way that, or multiple times, steal from you or lie about you or run your name down around town over and over again, and these things. I guess if it's not touching on you personally, you can maybe are even required to continue to just let it go. I think you can defend yourself, of course, but not to take personal revenge on them, right? And then there are situations, there are people in your life that are destructive and don't bring anything that you need to you just can't have in your life, that are so destructive that they go against what you're trying to do, that make your life more difficult. And people can have an on that end of it, they can come to you and say, this person that is that to you can say, well, you need to forgive me. You need to forgive all those stuff. I told you I was sorry, but there's just too much. It's more to it than that. So don't forget, brothers, that forgiveness doesn't mean that you need to be a doormat or just put up with everything, sand kicked in your face, disrespected in your own home. You have an obligation that overrides that on top of that, seems to me, in certain situations of protecting. Because what good is a man that doesn't protect his own family from something he sees that is a known danger or a threat to his children or his harmony or peace at home? Then he has every obligation to root that out and not to give that access to his castle. So there are some things that can go beyond forgiveness. Now, is forgiveness, can that not be reverted or changed in the future? You can never say that. Hearts and things can change, but I think, guys got to be aware of that as well. Let us proceed, gentlemen. What time is it? I'm desperate, my kingdom, for a coffee right now, as to quote our brother in Christ, AVE. I don't know that he is a brother in Christ per se, or knowingly, but even St. Paul of Tarsus, even his heart was changed. So anything's possible. I'd rather have a man like that on my side than against me, wouldn't you agree? Let's see, I'm not going to get greedy and get over there and chop up my new shiny siding. Let's see, that looks pretty good, gentlemen. We should have no problem getting any vehicles out of here. Maybe we'll just go blow that Yanmar out. Goodness, I think I still got the mower on there. Well, Chris, I'll tell you, you have every opportunity to do it. Go get yourself a camera and just start uploading. Put your hand to the plow and you can be there too. There's no reason why not. How do I know? Because I did it. Now, what is lurking underneath of that is the question. Yes, there is a bump there, isn't there? Or did I just make that bump? You know what? I think I am going to... no, we use the forks. I think I'm going to go in there with a probe before we fool around and damage something. How about we wrap this stream up with a little tour? We'll go just check the perimeter, as I like to do. We can push a little road in real quick. Check out the erosion. Check out the stream down to the over there to the north, and just get eyes on everything. How about we do that? Yeah, the poor old Yanmar. You know, the old farm tractor design, Noel, it just doesn't stand up to the skid steer. I mean, I resisted. My dad told me when we started talking and looking at tractors, he said, you know, you gotta look at a skid steer. And all I remembered was from those old days, those old bumpy bobcats that just about murder you when you're learning to operate them. You hit a curb and compress your spine. I had a very poor opinion of them, to be honest with you, to be honest. What I had not considered was that I had skipped about 10 generations of technology. So now we have like this little, what is it, 249 is so refined. I literally feel like I'm in Aliens, and I have a super powerful exoskeleton that just gives me superhuman ability to do whatever I want in a climate controlled environment. In any environment, even in a fire, I would be in here cool as a cucumber. I can change implements from the cab. I can lift heavy logs. I can grapple. I can broom. It's amazing. And it's a broadcast center for a live stream that can be viewed by anyone with internet access in the entire world. Are we even comprehending the world we're living in right now? Uh-oh, I may have lost the stream. There might not be internet on this corner. All right, we're heading back. Oh, goodness, we have a super chat from Mr. Kyle B. And Kyle B., this is for you. I'm going to very carefully nudge up here. We're going to have a beautiful river view together. Goodness, we have Kyle Abi says, Cody, if you were starting with pro homeowner power tools and enough money to buy one large piece of equipment, what direction would you go? Okay, that's a good question, Kyle. And shout out to you, Kyle. I'm just going to answer right off the top of my head. The first thing that comes to mind. The one piece of equipment, man. I'd have to say a UTV, a side-by-side UTV. But if I was going to have one, I would get the biggest, baddest one I would get. I would get like something that was a 1000, a twin, that had good accessories. So either a Polaris or a Honda. And it'd be a crew. What I'd get first. Number 2 would be skid steer after that. But as far as tools, I would start with Milwaukee. I would start with the M12, and I would get M12 and M18 series. Both of them. It depends. If you're going to be doing heavy duty stuff, just get all M18 stuff. If you're doing like automotive or you're working light truck, M18 all the way 100%. Super skookum stuff. I'm very fond of the M12 tools, and those are my favorite because they're so nice in hand. The batteries they're beautiful tools. They give me fizz every time I use them. I understand the Milwaukee fanboy. I did not like the Milwaukee fanboy for a long time, and that's why I resisted, because I didn't even want to be associated with him. The Milwaukee fanboy is the leper of the internet, and now I've become him. Here I am. But it stands to reason because they're really good and they're very innovative. Here's a perfect example. I was thinking 2 days ago, what would be my tool of the year of my, maybe I'll do maybe I'll do a short video on that. What would be my tool of the year for 2022? And there's no question what it would be, and that would be the Milwaukee M12, the little mini air compressor, which I bought because it was on sale, having all sorts of regret, like, why did I buy that little trinket piece of garbage? And it has made my life better ever since. My buddy who lives next door, David, who is my writing partner, he comes over and he saw me using it, and he loved it. He used it, and he's like, I'm buying one of these. And he bought one. This was this summer. He told me Sunday when he saw mine, he walked in the shop, we were getting ready to go snow biking. He said, that compressor has changed my life. That's one of the best tools I've ever bought. Thank you for recommending it to me. Right there. That's what I would do. But thank you for that super chat, and shout out to you. Was that Kyle? Yeah. Shout out to you, Kyle. Goodness, we have a very generous super chat from our friend Overton Windex. Shout out to you, Overton, who writes, there are a few things in this world I'd like to see more than a conversation about God. Men, future between Cody and Owen Benjamin, your wisdom, devotion, and knowledge of the word, and his insight, creativity, and perspective. Oh, it's very kind of you, but I know you're not. I don't know that I believe you about that. I think it's more likely, Overton, that what we're talking about here is not any sort of a particular insight or revelation or unique ability. I can't speak for Owen. Owen has made me. I haven't watched Owen for some time, and it's not because I have anything against him. I just lost touch, like I said the other day. But the brief time when he was on YouTube, when I was watching his stuff, Owen made me think and question traditions and dogmas that I had probably more than anyone else. I've had people that have done that to me in the past, even people that I didn't know, with just random comments. Those things sometimes can come from God. Does he not tell us that sometimes we administer to angels and don't even know it? That person that you're helping is not even a person, but it's been sent as a test to you. It's haunting, makes you shiver just thinking about it, right? But I don't know. these insight. But anyway, shout out to Owen. I wonder if what we're talking about here is just the reason why it's compelling and interesting to talk about. And I agree with you. I feel the same way. Is that this is what truth sounds like. This is what the Word of God, just His truth, me just repeating it. This is what it sounds like. So if it's resonating with you, if you feel, we're not talking about feelings here. We're not going to go with our Mormon friends and get burning bosoms and all that. But there is a resonance to the truth. You know it when you hear it. It has a certain, Jesus tells us that it's just such an interesting story. These agricultural stories don't get lost on the significance and how deep they are. He says, I'm the good shepherd, right? Well, what's a shepherd? Have you ever seen a shepherd? Have you ever seen a shepherd's crook or a man walking around with sheep? I mean, can you relate to that? Well, how does that help anyone if you grew up in the city? I've seen a shepherd. I used to go elk hunting with my grandfather, and there were people from the Basque people were the best sheep herders. And over there in the northeastern corner of the state, on those in Hell's Canyon, they have an open range, and these men would tend the sheep, and they would live in these little shacks, and their thighs looked like bodybuilders because all day long they walked up and down a canyon that's deeper than the Grand Canyon, herding these sheep. And it was their job to protect them, and they had rifles, they had mini 14s, and they would kill coyotes and predators, and that was their job, to protect them. And so what I found out about sheep, and Christ talks about this, he said, I am the shepherd, and my people are my lambs, my sheep, and they know me, and they know my voice. And when I call to them, we understand them. When the shepherd calls out danger, the sheep learn to his voice, and they understand who he is, and they'll come to him. But they won't come to a stranger. And so the call that is being put out there, if your heart is responding, you feel yourself responding, that this message is resonating to you, is because you're his sheep, and you're hearing a voice, and that voice is not my voice. You're hearing a voice. The voice is simply the Word. You're hearing the voice that resonates with you. There are people that will hear the voice and it won't resonate with them, and we don't know why. So now is the time to make the decision. There may not be other times. I've always known that always thought that if I didn't kill myself was something I could put it off. And of course, we always have the deathbed confession, right? But we can come to the point, that's the dangerous part, is that we get back to the unforgivable sin, that grieving of the Holy Spirit. That's significant because the grieving of the Holy Spirit, how I understand it, is when you so harden your heart, you so harden yourself that you can't hear the frequency. So you've pushed against God for so long, you've rejected the urgings of the Holy Spirit for so long now that the frequency is going out. I'm responding, you're responding. God's church, the army is being assembled, but yet the folks, they can't hear it. And so to them, it's foolishness, and they can't see it. They never will. So don't feel like you're doing something wrong if you can't reach your family. Don't feel like you're doing something wrong if you haven't had great efforts in your evangelistical efforts or whatever they were. Because what's Christ tell us? I stand at the door and knock. He gives the analogy, I stand and I come to the door and I knock. Are you going to answer? Maybe he'll knock twice, maybe he'll knock 3 times. But if you don't open the door, then he says, I turn away and I just leave. That's it. I came, I knocked, but you didn't respond, and I have no other choice. I'm not going to kick the door in. I'm not going to drag you out by your scruff, kicking and screaming, here, you need to hear this or you won't be saved. All I can do is let you go. That's what the end destruction time is. The end destruction time is not a vengeful, angry God that's waiting to throw and destroy people forever and ever, punish them in forever torment. It's our decision. We either responded or we didn't respond. And there's no one to blame other than that. That's why the books are kept. That's why the records are there. That's why you'll have an eternity to audit the books when you are angry at God that your loved ones didn't make it, that your children didn't make it. Would you ever be content to be happy in the kingdom, knowing that your loved ones perished and you weren't really quite sure what the situation was, Was God just? Was he fair in the judgment? Did he judge them overly harshly? Why is it that they're not with you in the kingdom forever and ever? And don't give me any foolishness that he's going to wipe our memories. Because if he's going to wipe our memories, then we're nothing more than automatons, and there's no value in any of it. We know evidence, again, gentlemen. How do I know that we're going to have memories in the kingdom? Is it because I feel that way, or is it Granddad told me that way? No, I know, because when Jesus came back after being in the tomb for three days and 3 nights, when he came back and showed himself to the saints, he had the nail print in his hands and the wound in his side. Even Thomas came there, doubting Thomas. We have that term, doubting Thomas. Thomas said, I will not believe when he heard that Jesus had been resurrected. I will not believe unless I see the nails in his hands and the piercing in his side. I won't even believe it. So I put my hand in there. And he did it. And he said, my Lord and my God. So here we have the first fruits of the resurrection. Here we have the example to us, what we will have in the kingdom. And we have the same Jesus with the same body, showing the wounds. Of course he would have the wounds. Why wouldn't he have the wounds? In a million, billion, trillion, quadrillion years in the kingdom, if a rebellion came up in the kingdom, again, and someone said, we question God's authority. It goes down the same route as Lucifer, the deceiver, did. We question his authority. God is not just, prove it to me. What will the proof be? The King of Kings and Lord of Lords will put his hands up. And the whole onlooking universe will see what? The nail prints. So are we to be automatons, and every time we get together for Sabbath? Jesus, tell us again, why is it you have those nail prints in your hands? Tell us again. We don't remember. Then if he tells you the story, then there must be more history, right? And the digging would begin, right? Everything will be laid bare. The books have been kept. The records are there. So, if and when you come to a time where you can have peace and you can come to your Lord, Lord, I don't understand. Why was my baby girl not here with me? Why is my mother not here with me? I don't have a scripture for this. I'm going to go out on a limb, but I don't know how else to say it. This is the way it looks to me, and the way the evidence points is that he would be able to take you there, and we could open it up. We could examine the life of anyone we wanted to. And he could show you through the annals of time all of the times he intervened and tried to work with, and how the Holy Spirit worked with that person's life, and yet they rejected and rejected and rejected. And it became so hard that they could no longer resonate to that signal. They could no longer respond to the gospel. And God said, I had no other choice, but I had to let them go. That's the final loss of the loved ones. Then and only then would a person, and you don't have to like it, and none of us are going to like it, but that's what freedom looks like. That's what having your own will and it being an individual looks like, is having the freedoms to make these decisions. And I like to think that given enough time, even the most heartbroken of us will be able to come to see and be able to come to understand that it was not the fault of God or his commandments or his government. He's not to blame. He did everything and more than he could to save this person, but they just wouldn't respond to it. And there was no other choice. And if a person won't respond in this world, then it would be too dangerous to bring them into the new. Because they probably would never respond. So it's sad. I mean, this is grown-up stuff, gentlemen. I mean, this is the nuts and bolts of life in Christianity. The stories you heard of childhood and miracles and fantasies and half-baked ideas and doctrines of men, it's time for that to all be thrown into the fire and burnt up. The only thing that we have to grasp onto, the only anchor or port of refuge that we have in this crazy clown world is the scriptures. And the rock. I'm the rock. A rock is a foundation. A rock can't be moved. So we need to, that's why we're here. And there's going to be very few of us that respond to this. And we're going to, all of us, make personal sacrifices at this. I can tell you, since we have been doing this the last couple of days, our family personally has been under attack spiritually. Not anything physical, but just difficulties and problems. Sicknesses and losing things and breaking things and computers not working and such. This is we right here, gentlemen. Those of us, the 400 of us that are sitting together, are on the very cutting edge, the tip of the spear of the spiritual battle, that will determine, that will bring in a changing world, that will bring in God's kingdom. Is it in our lifetime? No man knows. If any man says he knows what time that the Lord returns, don't believe him. Nobody knows. Only God. But that doesn't mean he didn't give us signs. And the signs are clear, and that's why we're here. So I don't know. I haven't got any marching orders. It would be so nice, back in the children of Israel back in the day. Of course, we know that there were the 12 tribes, and one tribe was set aside to be the priesthood. And the chief priest had this garment. It's called an ephod that he would wear. And the ephod was a square, just imagine kind of a vest type of deal. And it had 12 stones on it. And each stone represented one of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And they were all different stone, jasper and onyx and all these different stones. Interesting, also they correspond with the 12 foundations of the kingdom, of the New Jerusalem, that they'll stand. The walls of the New Jerusalem will be built on these foundational stones, these 12 tribes. Well, in addition to the stones representing the 12 tribes, there were 2 stones, one on each shoulder. One was called the Uman, and one was called the Thuman. I butchered that, but something to that effect. And it was basically a yes-no. Imagine it like a red-blue. Very mysterious, but this is the way God did it back in the day with the fathers. And if an important decision, many times needed to be made, shall we go up to battle? Should we vanquish the enemy? Should we plant or do this? The leaders could come to the priest and God would respond and answer with this, yes or no. I often ask myself, would I prefer to have a God like that, where you had you just got answers, yes or no? Should I have French toast this morning, or should I eat oatmeal? Oh, damn, oatmeal again, right? Because a loving God knows what's good for you. And he doesn't want you to eat the sausage omelet with the bacon. He wants you to eat the oatmeal, right? But at least you're in his will. At least you're doing the right thing, right? Would you prefer that? So when I'm struggling in life, I think to myself, oh, bring me the ephod so I can put it on and stand in front of the mirror and get some directions of what I should do, because I'm not hearing from God, and the prayer and the heavens seem to be as solid brass when it comes to my prayers. I don't think we've been in that situation. However, would you really, that's going to work with a job, punching a time clock, told what to do, told when you can vacation, told when you can have a potty break. But there is some freedom in that. You go home and you have not a care in the world. Whereas to someone who is running the small business, he's not vacationing, he's always on work. He's always working, he's always thinking, he's always grinding, he's always putting in 80-hour weeks. Yet, he enjoys the freedom. He'll do that work, I'll do that work, because I know that if I so choose to sit on that couch and eat potato chips all day, that I'll do that. I can do that, and there's not a person in the world to tell me not to. And that having that freedom is everything. And that's what God wants us to have. Wants us to experience it. He wants everyone to be self-employed in the kingdom. There you go. We will be self-employed in the kingdom, free. Goodness, I missed some super chats here. I got to get these back up here a little bit. I apologize, gentlemen. Thank you, Overton. That was very generous. And shout out to you again if I didn't already. If there's a man worthy of a double. We have another super chat from Mr. Overton Windex. Shout out to you, who writes, I see people asking M1 Bear versus V45 on YouTuber for QB. Oh, goodness. has constantly banned Overton. You know I'm not a smart man. I don't know what you're saying here. I see people asking M1 bear. I don't know what that means. Oh, is there someone causing problems? Well, here's my policy with you, the moderators. You have been very carefully selected, and I trust you implicitly. And your word goes. And if you think someone needs to be banned for life, you do it. I support you 100%. You have a free, complete autonomy to use your judgment. We have a super chat from Doug Campbell. Shout out to you, Doug. No message, just a very generous chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. And shall we proceed? Here we go. Yes. Oh, Jack's behind me. You want to come around? Or you want me back up? Jack he chose poorly with his footwear, which you'll see here in a minute. Goodness, we're all fogged up. All right, I'm going to make sure he's clear. I'll just back up, Jack. I'll turn around and so you don't have to get wet. I'm going to run over Jack here. Or fall in the river. Goodness. Did you go over your boots?
Yeah.
Did you happen to bring coffee?
But OJ, not coffee.
Nice, that'll do. Would you ask your mom to put me on a thermos? I'll come grab it.
Okay. And remember, you have to leave at 12.
What time is it now?
11.
I better head in then. Okay, I'll start heading that way. Oh man, what a good boy he is. Smart like his mom. All right, let's get that off here. I've got to go back into Portland today, believe it or not. That's like 2 times in 2 weeks. I told you guys that everything's been breaking. We've been under attack. My main editing computer, look at Mrs. W made for me. She made me a breakfast sandwich. This is the local bakery has this semolina, sesame seed, oh goodness, and Hickory Farm sausages. You cut them thin like this, and you fry them crispy like bacon. Oh, Jack's not pleased. He had a long walk to bring this out here to me. And you toast that with Kerrygold butter and our eggs from our chickens. Goodness. All right. Yeah, so I got to go to Portland. My editing computer, my iMac. I've had a lot of Apple computers, and it just died, and it's only 2 years old. So I've got to go in, take it in there for repair, and I've got to go see a chiropractor. I learned from you guys yesterday, or I don't know for sure, but it got me thinking. I was thinking my problem was at the hand level, but I heard from Mr. Hastings. I tried to respond to you, Noah. I don't know if it went through or not several times. I was doing a text-to-speech, and I thought it went through, but I didn't hear back from you, so I fear it didn't. But you kind of got me looking into it a little bit. I think I damaged something in my neck, a nerve or something, because as I was telling him, it's been 4 weeks, my hands have been numb, and I had a real hard crash on that 24-hour endurance race where I separated a rib. I went over the handlebars and stacked up really bad. Well, my hands have been numb ever since then, and I'll bet that's both of them and my feet a little bit. So I bet something's going on there. So I've got a super, super good Japanese chiropractor I've been going to for years. I'm going to start with that. So I know that's probably to some of our traditional Western medicine friends that's going to be heresy, and I know there's bad in everyone, but I've had I've had a lot of good experiences with my Japanese chiropractor. He's a devout Christian and a healer. So that's always, I always figure that's always a good place to start. If it doesn't work, at least you didn't get cut open. I'm going to flip you around here. Oh, did I miss a chat? Good grief. From Anthony, of all people. I got to back up. I got a mouthful of sandwich. Oh, thank you for the reminder. I'm so sorry. I see Doug. Anthony, where are you? Where are you? Overton? Someone copy Anthony's post. I don't see it here. If someone could copy that for me, I will give him his just reward to address him personally. What was it that Anthony was wanting to talk about? Prophet Bear, good to see you. Oh, here we go. I got it. Okay, Anthony. Goodness. Shout out to you, Anthony. And thank you to, who dropped that for? Mr. Landfill. Anthony Richer wrote, have you considered more back to basic content like the cool new stuff, but miss the back to basic? Yeah, I do too. It's one thing that's been really difficult with that is we had timber on the other piece of property. You can't just go out and cut stuff. Because a lot of that stuff that I was able to do was all using our own wood and all that. So one thing that Mrs. W and I have kind of made a priority is we are looking for. If we could turn this property into a modest home for us, and then the bigger home that we live in now, if that could be the community center that we wanted to do for events and such, that takes care of two problems right there. What would be perfect, and anything's possible with God, though, is if we could get 40, 80 acres 10 minutes from here to the north, up bordered up against national forest somewhere, where we could do our own things. So if we're going to we could do I could do a cross-cut filing course that would last for 3 or 4 days. We'd have our own material, and what we were doing, there would be a point to do what we were doing. There was a point to building fence and bridges. I love doing that, but just to make something, to make it just to show or without any purpose is tedious. So the content has changed because my life has changed. We didn't know how things were going to work out. Things were, with COVID, we were moving quick and making decisions. We knew we needed to be in this area. That was the right decision. But now we've got to kind of fill in some of the blanks. But I'm doing the best I can. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we're not ready to talk about yet. But shout out to you, and thank you for that. Yeah, cross-cut filing, that'd be a good one, wouldn't it, Noel? Paul is asking how I like the cat equipment. This is the first cat equipment that I've owned. I've ran lots of it, but I never bought it personally for myself because it was more expensive than the Japanese equipment. So I bought what I could afford. But I always understood that cat was the best. And when I say the best, that's considering their dealer network and their parts availability. But after having one, having two, and I'm a hands-on operator, so I do my own greasing and light maintenance and stuff. It's beautifully designed. It's very simple. Like just things like door latches and clatches. They don't try to get fancy. They just make things very big, strong, simple, robust, replaceable. From what I'm seeing, and I know skid steers are notoriously difficult, compact, but just for the professional homeowner side of it, that's doing his basic maintenance and stuff, and might put some tracks on and stuff. Very easy to work on. Good manuals, good support. Excellent. Everything's been really great. Not as refined maybe as something like a link belt or such in some ways, or the techno stuff. I don't know. I've been out of it for a long time. I'm very pleased. No regrets. Would buy the exact same thing again. 100% stoked. We have a super chat from Mr. Jason. Shout out to you, Jason. Jason writes, "Hi, Cody. Any advice on getting more self-sufficient and why it's a goal of yours to be self-sufficient? Thank you for what you do." Because I don't want to get put into a camp, and I don't want to stand in lines for food, and I don't want my wellness and happiness and well-being of my family to be in the hands of a bureaucrat as much as possible. I mean, it stands to reason, right? Yeah, I like to have options. You know, I've never followed along with the herd. I've always done things differently, and I never wanted to. I don't know what. I like to have options. I'm fiercely independent. There'll be a time where I can't be independent, and I can't do everything, but I can do what I can do. I can make a decision. I can make decisions that if I slip off the road with my family to go get a Christmas tree, that I can get myself out, and I'm not at the mercy of another more capable man. You know, that's important to me. Those things. We have a super chat from Kyle B. Well, I think that's a good point. He's asking if I ever disappear from YouTube, where should we be looking for it? I think Rumble seems to be here to stay. I know that I'm starting to follow some of my favorite content creators that are exclusive there now and going over there, and I'm actually starting to go over there. Is it perfect? Is it as good as YouTube? No, it's not, but it's still pretty good, and the app's pretty good. I actually, yesterday, for the first time, I went out from a channel that I follow that's over there exclusively, and I watched their show after in the evening on Rumble and not YouTube for the first time. So I would say probably over there. I probably need to. I have the channel; it's all set up, but I haven't put content up over there. I need to look into that. But thank you. It's a very interesting, good question. That's something I need to think about as well. But shout out to you, Kyle B. Goodness, we have a super chat from Nilfinity. Shout out to you, Nilfinity. You might even get 4 honks for that. Who writes, what is your advice for a young man, 29, who is questioning his belief in God? I feel like it's impossible for there not to be a high power, but my past experience with religion has me questioning. Boy, you and me both, brother. You and me both. I'm surprised that I was able to come out of the environment that I did, as negative as the effect, as negative as it was, and still be able to have a conversation with God whatsoever. What I've got to tell you at your age, as hard as it is, you have to realize that the majority of what your parents and your teachers and everything that you've been told about Christianity is most likely BS or wrong. And not intentionally. Some may have done it intentionally to control and manipulate, but most of it's just done out of ignorance and out of manipulation. You're old enough, you need to cut ties with all of that, and you need to look at it like, okay, I need to look at this logically. No one's going to save me. I have to save myself. This decision I'm about to make affects me and me alone. And I either sink or swim by this decision, and no one's going to save me. There aren't any coattails in the kingdom. I guess that's where we need to start, right there. Let's strip away some of the BS and the soft soap and the nonsense. Well, God tells us, well, you're going to say, well, I need some guidance. You know, my parents didn't teach me. My dad wasn't there for me. I need some guidance. You know, who can I trust? If I can't trust anyone, then what am I supposed to do? Supposed to learn this on my own? Well, you have an obligation to get in there and learn some on your own. But in my experience, and I can only tell you what he's done for me. When we start talking off scripture, I'm not going to be giving advice. I can just tell you what he's done for me. He's brought people into my life to square my shoulders, to get me on the path, to show me something what I thought I knew was wrong. The good book tells us this: you'll know a man by his fruits. You can't know what's inside of a man's heart. You can't know his motivations, if he's an enemy or if he's a friend. But you can know his fruits. And that's what Jesus tells us. He gives, what he's basically saying is this. He's like, I want you guys to be as harmless as doves. I don't want you to be starting fights. My people, I want them to be known as a calm, reasonable thinking people. A meek spirit is not to be confused with a weak spirit. We know that we think of gentle Jesus, meek and mild, and we grew up with those hateful pictures, of Jesus with the lamb and the kids all around him and everything's really nice. But we ever see a picture in the nursery of Jesus cleansing the temple twice, or casting out the demons into the swine, etc., etc., right? Meekness is not to be confused with weakness. So what you're looking for, you want to have your eyes open to, and I don't know that you actively have to go out and find it. God will bring people into your life, whether it be the internet or in person, or both, most likely. You pray about this, and you need to look at it. So if someone comes to you with a message, or, hey, let me tell you about my faith, let me tell you about my Christianity, well, that's all fine and good. But once we establish that we're on the right page we're even in the same book, right? We're even talking about the same God. Once we establish that, then what are the fruits? What are the fruits of this man? What is his relationship with his wife? What is his relationship with his children? You'll know them by their fruits. So that we have ways of testing these things. So I guess what I would tell you is that you've got to go put some work in. You can't be considered a professional homeowner, a person of the book, if you haven't buckled down and put the effort in at least to read it. If you haven't read the New Testament in the last year, then we can't really go any further from that. You've got to put some effort in. God is not going to drop everything in your lap. He'll help you, but you got to figure things out on your own. Everything speaks to how he works with us, gentlemen. All these lessons. We got to stop looking at the scripture with the eyes of a child. We need to ask ourselves in everything that we read, the Old Testament, the New Testament, what is this telling us about God? What is this telling us about his character? What does he want us to know? When he gives us the story and the instructions back to the homeless in the day, he told, you had a field. We've talked about this before. You had 40 acres. The commandment of Moses was, that's yours, but you leave the corners. When you come in and you go to thresh, you cut a little bit wide, you leave the corners. Why? The corners are left for the gleaning of the widows and the indigent. That means that they will always have food. They're not going to go hungry. You don't have to give it to them. I'm not asking you to give to them. I'm asking you to give out of your abundance. You have more than enough. It's not going to make any difference to the bottom line if you leave those corners, right? If you leave them there. But they had to go out and get it. They had to go out and get it. And if they were willing to get up in the morning and go out and to thresh and gather, then they would eat. There was a provision for them there. You have an obligation to get serious about prayer, to get serious and look at life and look at the army of God through the eyes of a man and through a soldier. Do you want to be on the winning side? Do you want to be with me in the kingdom? Do you want to have eternity together, that we can travel the universe at the speed of thought, talking about the old days where we sat in the exoskeleton in the snow? Do you want to have that? I want to have that. I want to have an endless flow of people coming through that said, maybe in some way someone turned away or changed, made a change or took a step towards Christ because of something they saw in a live stream. I don't want to be that person when he stands in front of the judgment that God says, where were you? You were ashamed of me. You were embarrassed of me. You were too embarrassed. You were not willing to run the risk to say the name Jesus Christ publicly, and therefore I will be ashamed of you. I won't represent you at the judgment. Grow up. We all need to grow up. This is everything. This is important. This life, gentlemen, that we're, and ladies, Beth, that we're, this is not our home. We were not designed to live in this environment. And it was bad enough in Abraham's day. It was bad enough for farmers that, or carpenters that lived simple lives. But think of how simple their lives were. I was, my friend, I'll close with this. We got to go. But my friend David, we were getting ready for the snow bikes. The managing the gear is, it's tremendous. It's absolutely tremendous. And so many things are critical. And then you have to do it for two teen boys as well, because they're learning as well. So you have to do it twice. So you have to worry about your own stuff and theirs. So it's a very stressful situation. And then the lights failing, and you put yourself in that situation. And we were in the weeds with all this stuff and trying to find gloves. And I turned to him and I said, David, I said, do you ever? And he's a surgeon and works at the highest level, so he understands pressure and stress. I said, do you ever just long for the day where you could just be a simple man, and you got up and you knew what you had to do? You milked, you fed, you shoveled, or you were a carpenter. When we were in Sweden the last time we went up to the province called Mora, and it's a beautiful place out in the country. It's I think it's I forget what part of Sweden. Well, I'll say it, but I forget it. But it's beautiful, huge lake kind of in the central of town, massive, massive lake. You can kind of see across it. And little villages on the hills that descend up from the lake, rolling grass hills up into forests and rocks, very similar to coast Oregon. All the houses are red, and they're all the exact same color. And that tradition started because there was a mine back in the day that was rich in this particular pigment that made red paint and red dye it was basically free, so everyone painted with it, protected. And so that's become a tradition now. And that's where the dollar horse, those little horses, the Swedish horses all come from. So we were there early, where the tourist season hadn't really started and people were still opening up and there was snow all over the place. But I was, just still coming out of, the chaos of we're trying to get the off-grid, everything started in the YouTube channel, into this idyllic environment right on the shores of this beautiful lake in Sweden with snow all over and this gorgeous little two-story house and cabin. And the guy had it opened up and he had a workshop there. He was a carpenter and he built these little, just beautiful little windmills. You've seen them in gardens where there'll be like a guy at a well pump or the two railroad guys, the wind turns them and they animate a character. And most of what you see are just cheap imitation ripoffs. But this guy was actually producing one that was original to that area. It was very high quality and ornate, and the characters did multiple things. It was beautiful. It was a work of art. It took a long time to have made one, but that was his job. And he had his retail space down below, and all his wares that he had made, beautifully displayed in this 800-year-old house or whatever it was. And his job in the morning, he got up and he would open his workshop on the second story, and he would start his wood stove. And he would turn on his music and imagine a fire lookout tower with glass all the way across that looked out on that water and the snow. And he would sit down and do his carpentry work. And he would make so many of this character, and then he would go over here and he would do that, and and everything was a mix of handmade and machinery. But when you walked the shop, you saw a man that had 50 years, 40 years of tools and everything, just absolute precision, the chisels and the abilities. I wish I could have spent more time there talking to him, but his English was broken and I felt like I was maybe imposing. But I've often thought of that man and I've thought of that place when I find myself really getting stressed out in the weeds and the obligation of life and the things that we have to try to keep track of, the information that we have to process. And everyone's saying, oh, what happened to our children? How come they don't have any attention span? Look at the amount of data that they have to process. They don't have time to dwell on anything. They have to receive it, categorize it, and get rid of it. Swipe, 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 swipe. That's the only way you can do it and maintain your sanity. Just think of just dealing with Bluetooth. I mean, the aggravation and the frustration that brings to your life. And there's so many things in a changing environment coming at us that I think many of us are just have had it. We're tired from it, and we just don't want to do it anymore. And you think about the simplicity of that man who worked in his carpenter shop every day and made a living. Was he rich? I don't know, but he owned his home, and he's ate lunch with his wife, and his children were being raised in his home by his stay-at-home mom, his wife. How many people, how many of you want that? You can't have that anymore. Yeah, so, yeah, we probably shut it down. We just have to be careful. I'll close with this. We have to look at this decision to put your hand to the plow of a walk with God seriously and understand what the consequences and what that means for you. It's going to be difficult. But we also have the promise that we're not going to do it alone, and that God will be there and he'll make up the slack where you can't. He gives us a promise that he'll never put more on us than we're able to bear, but he'll always provide an escape route. And that's directed at sin, and that's a very important promise and one that you should remember, we should all remember and repeat daily. It should be on the tip of your tongue. That whenever you feel like you're unable to resist. It was close for me the other day after a wonderful day snow biking that we were unloading David's bike, and he ages and makes this beautiful whiskey, bourbon, does it himself. It's like, I've had it before when I used to drink, and it's one of my favorites. He gave me a quart jar one time. And if there was ever a time that I would have give my kingdom to sit down with a friend by a wood stove after a fire, after a snow bike ride, with the snow falling, and enjoy a whiskey with him, it was that moment right there. And I wavered in my mind. I never said anything or alluded to it, but I wavered in my mind. But that promise will save you in a situation like that. And that promise will come to your mind. I'll never allow you to be tempted more than you're able to resist, but will provide you an escape route, a way out. Now, whether or not you choose to go have that bourbon, then I'm not saying bourbon's a sin. Don't go there. What you do in your deal and what your relationship is between God, that's your business. I got my own problems about worrying about your drinking habits. But for me, I know I know logically and theologically, I'm strong enough in my faith, and I know that I can go in there and have three, whatever. I can do whatever I want to. I can go and have that drink, and I can make the decision not to do it. It's not a sin for me. We're not talking about salvation issue. But know thyself, right? If you've been doing something for 30 years and you can't get a handle on it, and you continue to fall back into the mud time and time and time again, no matter what you do, maybe that's a problem for you. Maybe that's something that you shouldn't go. Maybe you shouldn't shake hands with that devil, right? And it's not as if I didn't have my time in the sun enjoying it. So you just have to grow up. We got to grow up. Like, well, I that's not what I do anymore. I abuse that. Could I, if I went back in time, could I use it? Not have it such a prominent part of my life where I have to cut it all out. Probably, but that's not where we're at. This is where we're at, and so that's what we have to do. So God did provide escape for me. I struggled with it for a moment. That scripture came to mind. Remember, what's the only offensive weapon we have, gentlemen? Paul told us to cover ourselves with the armor of God. We only have one offensive, and that's the word. That's the sword, which is the Spirit. And what's the Spirit? The Spirit is the word of God. That's everything. That's what's written in the book. That's what you recite. That's what you remember. No, that's your weapon. And so when that temptation comes upon you and you're about ready to buckle, then you bring it forth. You bring forth the Spirit, which is the sword of truth, and you say, I reminded God. I said, God, you told me that you would not allow me to be tempted more than I'm able to resist. And if you are real, then this promise needs to be true. Remind him of it. Remind yourself of it. But if you don't know it, then your ethics, where do your ethics come from? They'll come from the situation. They're malleable. You bend them, you tailor-make them to fit whatever situation it is, to give the flesh what it is that it wants at that moment. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. So you see, brothers, there are none righteous, no, not one. The good book tells us that our so-called righteousness, if we think that we're doing well, we gave a donation to the church, we help someone fix their transmission, we think we maybe got some favor in store or laid up. What's God tell us about that? He tells us, I'll tell you what, your righteousness, it's as a filthy rag. That's the comparison that he makes. That's how far sin is removed from righteousness. And that filthy rag he was referring to was not a grease rag. Brothers, I wish I could stay. We could go down there by the river, but I've got to go see my chiropractor friend, and I've got to drop off my computer for repair. That's going to take the rest of the day, and I have to assemble my arsenal. My arsenal is always assembled. The question is how am I going to get a $5,000 27-inch iMac out of my truck and across a couple blocks of, as if I could find parking, a couple blocks of homeless encampments to the Apple store in one piece. Does anyone want to offer personal and private security for 2 hours this afternoon in PDX? Get with me. All right, gentlemen. Thank you for watching. I sure do appreciate it. I really appreciate the generosity from those of you who have super chatted and the stickers. Your time, your prayers. I don't want to leave on a discouraging note. I don't want to come off as being discouraged anyway. I don't feel that way. I feel somewhat solemn and somber. It's time to be sober and realize, what men do is when there's a situation and things are changing, or you need to make a change, wishing for it to happen is not a plan. Hope is not a plan. We just have to suck it up and do it. And we know at the other end, we know what the promise is. We know who's on the winning side. So it's worth doing. We're not just doing it for no reason. We're doing it because it's the right reason, and it's the truth, and it's the only way. If we want to be reunited, we want to be put back in the environment that we were created to be, to be in proximity to our Creator, then that's what it takes. He's provided us a path we have to go. The orders are coming through, gentlemen. We're getting ready to go through physical PT, spiritual, to get ourselves ready for this. And, maybe that's this winter, I don't know. But the call has been put out. I think we're feeling it. I think we're hearing it. And who's going to respond? I want to be one of those 400 that defeated the enemies of God with Gideon. I don't want to be one of the masses that was sent back with the women to dwell in the tents while the soldiers fought. I can't think of anything worse than that. Thank you for watching, gentlemen. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers. And we'll see you guys all on the next live stream or video.